Expert Edge. This is the show where we bring on experts in their fields of health and wellness practice. We hear their stories and we learn what's working in the field of diabetes reversal and prevention. And I'm happy to introduce today's expert, Sarah Grace. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that you can be here today. For those of you that haven't met her, Sarah Grace found her calling in recovery coaching after experiencing sugar addiction firsthand. So she's passionate about helping people find freedom from the negative effects of sugar and ultra processed food. She's a nationally certified food addiction recovery coach and the owner of Sarah Grace Coaching, Weight Loss and Sugar Addiction Recovery with Christ at the center. So today we're going to be talking about the view from the recovery side of sugar addiction. And I would love for you to share a little bit about your story, Sarah. Tell us, how did you get started with your interest in this area of addictions and recovery?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lucia. So, I am in addiction recovery because I want to help people who are right now where I used to be. I was so desperate. I was getting heavier. I was getting sicker. And I fought tooth and nail to get my freedom back. And now that I am free from the negative effects of sugar and processed food, my goal is to help people find that freedom. So I am a Christian, and my faith in God plays a powerful role in my recovery. And I just believe that God wants freedom for us. He wants thriving for us. And that is what I want for everyone. And I help people to achieve that. One of my favorite verses, it's actually my recovery verse and my life verse, is Galatians 5:1. And it's for freedom. Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not return again to the yoke of slavery. And Lucia, addiction, sugar addiction, processed food addiction, it is slavery. It is bondage. For those of us who are in its clutches and cannot escape, it truly is bondage. And God wants us to be free from that. And it's funny because there's a growing awareness now, more so than it used to be, of the fact that you can be addicted to sugar. It is a deadly addiction. But sometimes still people think that it's like a sweet tooth, or that someone should just get their willpower together and figure it out and stop eating so many sweets. But we are finding more and more that it truly is an addiction, like drug is an addiction, like alcoholism is an addiction. Or like alcohol is an addiction. So just bringing that awareness, realizing that there is hope. And I love this conversation about diabetes reversal and blood sugar health, because with my clients, I often see that a sugar addiction, ultra processed food addiction, and blood sugar unhealth often go hand in hand, because when you're not eating well, you see the results of that. And so it's really encouraging to see that you can get health in this area. For me personally, it's part of my story. When I was in my sugar addiction, my blood sugar, I had an A1C of 5.4, which is borderline prediabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a fasting glucose of 100, which is technically prediabetes. And I had insulin resistance and elevated CRP, which indicates inflammation. And I was so unhealthy. And just by changing what I eat, how I eat, my lifestyle, I was able to reverse these things. My A1C is now 4.8. My fasting blood sugar is 75 to 85. And my fasting insulin is under 2. I have no more insulin resistance. And I am helping my clients do this for themselves too. So it's amazing. So a little bit about my story.
Yeah.
I share, this is just a little nutshell for the sake of time and for this interview, but
Well,
if
we
you,
have time. We have time, so go ahead, because I know that it really makes a difference to people when they really believe that you know what they're feeling and what they're going through. So, thank you.
well said, well said. Well, my experience is that in 2019, so in my late 30s, I started to see a change in how I was relating to alcohol. So I went from enjoying a glass of wine with friends, being able to enjoy a glass of wine at dinner, going to the vineyard with friends, enjoying it socially like it should be enjoyed, right? Like socially and for enjoyment. Just that's how you're supposed to enjoy alcohol. I went from that, a normal relationship with alcohol, to using it to change how I felt. So when I was having a bad day, I would reach for a glass of wine. When I was having a feeling or a thought that I didn't want to process, I would reach for a glass of wine. And this was really alarming to me because I know where that leads. Like I know I have people in my life who have experienced alcoholism,
Mm.
and that is not a road that I wanted to go down. And so I knew that I had to cut it out. I did not want that because I know that addiction is progressive, and that would have just been that's just not a road I wanted to go down. So
Mhm.
there's a book, and I want to share this book with any of your listeners who might be curious about their relationship with alcohol. If they think, am I enjoying it like it should be enjoyed, or am I using it to change how I feel? There is a book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And
Mm.
Lucia, this book, have you heard of this book?
I haven't.
Okay, it will tell you, she's so smart. She will explain in a really easy way for us to understand scientifically what alcohol is doing to our
Mm.
brain, to our body, and it basically ruined alcohol for me. I was like, okay, if that's what's happening, I don't need that anymore. That was all I needed was this book to tell me what was actually happening when I'd consumed it. And I quit alcohol cold turkey. So
Mm.
that was in 2019.
Tell
That's,
us the name of that book again.
yes, This Naked Mind by
Okay.
Annie Grace.
I
So,
really appreciate you sharing that resource because I really appreciate you sharing that experience as well because I know that we have listeners that will resonate with what you're saying. And it's not something that I resonate with as I've been a teetotaler all my life, never tasted alcohol. So I really don't know what that's like, right? And
yeah.
so but I know that so many people are struggling with that. And
Mm,
so I really appreciate you both sharing your experience around that and this resource that was so helpful for you when you were at that place. So thank you.
absolutely.
And so then, as you quit cold turkey, then what
Ooh.
happened?
Well, let me tell you, I mean, you can imagine. Instead of reaching for a glass of wine after a hard day or to kind of numb, the feelings, I would reach for a Snickers bar or some
Mm.
ice cream. And at first, that was great. That was harmless. Like some sugar every now and then is great. Enjoy it. But for me, I started to do it more and more. My consumption
Mm.
went up, my tolerance went up, and then I would need more just to feel the same effect. So, whereas one treat would have been fine a few months later, or even, whatever, months to a year later, I was needing a lot more to get the same
Mm.
numbing effect. And that is what addiction is. It's progressive. So I knew I could tell that that was going to be something that I would have to fight with, and I did. I mean, this is where my blood sugar journey started, where my
Mhm.
unhealth, I went from take it or leave it with sugar to a full-on sugar addict.
Mm.
So, yeah. And so through lots of so much. I mean, I tell people that it was like a part-time job, Lucia, to
Mm.
just lean in to figure out how to get out of this pit of addiction. It makes me want to cry. And this is why I'm in recovery right now, the addiction recovery field, because I know there are still people right now. There are moms, there are women my age, there are, women, there are so many people who are right now unable to string 2 days together, not eating what they promised themselves they would not eat. That affects their
Mm.
identity. It affects us spiritually. It affects every part of us if we cannot get a hold of this and if it really does run with us.
And I think you bring out something else that maybe people don't know, or some people may have experienced, which is when you let go of one addiction,
Mm,
that if you haven't dealt with some of the underlying root causes,
hmm
then you often simply substitute one addiction for another. Like in your case, you substituted a sugar addiction for an alcohol addiction. People
Mhm.
do it with nicotine, like they'll stop smoking and then they'll end up with a sugar addiction, or maybe shopaholic, or maybe gambling, or, but it's like all of these addictions share something in common, don't they?
They do. They absolutely
And
do.
and I think many people find that they're in that cycle because they're trying to, you mentioned numb emotions like pain in their life that they just don't want to have to deal with because it hurts too much. And there's often like really good reasons behind what got them started on that. And without dealing with those reasons, I do believe it's hard to completely break loose from addictive behaviors. You can swap behaviors, but to really have the proper relationship that we should have with aspects of our life requires um, that we really pay attention to
Mhm.
some of these underlying pieces. So, in your case, what was it that helped you then to realize what was going on with the sugar? And what were the things that helped you to experience freedom?
Yeah. Thank you so much. First of all, you're exactly right about the transfer addiction. We see that so often. People go
Mhm.
off drugs and they start smoking. And it really is, it's a matter of learning how to deal with life for the ups and the downs, all the hard things. It's about building resilience. And that is what I had to do in my life. I am a highly sensitive person, Lucia. My mom jokes that when I would fall and skin my knee when I was a kid, I just would take a nap. I couldn't even persevere through the
Mhm.
pain. Like I could not. So for me to process hard things, emotions, and just the nature of life. There's just things that we have to process just with the realities around us. It
Mhm.
requires resilience. It requires building a new identity of someone who used to be someone who soothes to someone who leans in and self-cares instead. It really is it's a new identity, and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of inside work for me to go from someone who tried to hide from things and used substances to, numb it out and like try to avoid it, try to just not feel it, take the metaphorical nap as it were,
Mhm.
to being someone who can deal with the hard things. I don't use food anymore when I have a hard day. I don't use alcohol anymore when I have a hard day. I don't run to a vice or the easy way,
Mhm.
and what's amazing, Lucia, I'm a mom. I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. And knowing resilience in my own life allows me to help them create an identity of resilience as well. You know,
Mhm.
just driving
I
them to
love
school
that.
this morning. Yeah. Just driving them to school this morning and talking about how we do hard things. And I can
Mhm.
say that with a clear conscience because I require the same from myself,
Mhm.
and God can help us with this. My faith, like I said, plays a huge role in my recovery, and He can give us the strength. When we are weak, He will help us when we seek His face. So,
I totally agree. And, as we think about dealing with blood sugar issues and prediabetes and diabetes and how these addictions often will keep us stuck in those places, let's back up just a little bit. And could you explain to our listeners what's actually happening inside of our bodies that leads to high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and pre or type 2 diabetes?
yeah, that's really a good thing for everyone to understand because when we
Hmm.
eat food, sometimes we just think, I was hungry, now I'm eating, now I'm full, and we don't think about the fact that everything that we put in our body affects us either negatively or positively. So God
Hmm.
has designed us to metabolize food in the most beautiful way, to transfer food to energy. It is such a beautiful system, but it's a really delicate system and it can become dysregulated really, really easily. So, when a metabolically healthy person eats something, so for example, 3 times a day, I eat on my plate this beautiful, well rounded meal of a vegetable, a complex carbohydrate, a really healthy fat, a protein, whether plant based or animal based. and some fruit. Is that 5 things? Yeah. And I eat it and my body responds beautifully. Blood sugar increases. My pancreas is signaled to release insulin to move the blood sugar into the cells, into the muscles to be used for energy. The cells respond because they are sensitive to insulin signal. They respond after after the sugar is cleared from the blood, the insulin is signaled to go back down. It goes back down. Its job is done. We have fuel for energy. It is beautiful. And that is how we are created to metabolize food. That is what our body is made to do. What the sad thing is, and when this gets dysregulated, is when we eat the standard American diet, which is all around us, and we all eat it. And when we consume this highly processed, ultra palatable, like bliss point food that is not even recognizable anymore, it is so refined, so processed. When we consume it, our body has consistently elevated blood sugar levels. So insulin pumps out more and more and more to counteract this blood sugar because it's dangerous to have high blood sugar in our bloodstream. So eventually what happens is the cells in our bodies stop responding to insulin signal. They say, no thanks, we've had enough blood sugar. And they don't respond anymore. So insulin is furthermore pumping out more and more and more, trying to get these cells to respond, to absorb the glucose. What ends up happening is, insulin is a fat storage hormone. So what ends up happening is insulin will move this excess blood sugar out of our blood and into liver cells, which is where we see this increase in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's where it's coming from. And also our fat cells. It's storing, this is where the weight gain comes in. So insulin resistance is when the cells, they are overwhelmed, and it's because of our diet. They're overwhelmed by blood sugar. They're like, no, thank you. Then I'm not going to listen anymore. And insulin stores it in these places where it should not be stored. So insulin resistance is really unfortunate. And Lucia, it's very common. It's
Yes, it
very
is.
common. So that
It
is,
is.
yeah.
And what are some of the problems that we can experience when our blood sugars are elevated or our insulin levels are elevated over a long period of time? What happens in our body?
Yeah. So insulin resistance is a really big deal. And like we were just talking about, it's super common. Over 40% of young Americans have insulin resistance right now. And insulin resistance, we just think it's a word, but it really leads to some very, very unfortunate things. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So this is something that the reason it says non-alcoholic is because it used to only be seen within alcoholics, right?
Right.
So now even children have it. Even children have these fatty livers because of insulin resistance. So that is a big one. PCOS. PCOS is heartbreaking. And it is becoming more and more understood that insulin resistance is a main driver for this. And PCOS is one of the biggest reasons for infertility in young women. It is heartbreaking. Another one is weight gain, which we just discussed. And we're finding that, so cognitive decline, neurodegenerative decline is sometimes referred to as type 3 diabetes, and that is insulin resistance in the brain. So there are a lot of things that insulin resistance bring. And then when we have continually elevated, so there's just different levels, right? When you get to 5.7 A1C, now your blood sugar is so high that you are diagnosed as pre-diabetic. And that, we think sometimes when we think pre-diabetic, that pre takes a little bit of the sting out of it. But in reality, Lucia, as you know, that pre-diabetes carries some of the same risk factors as full-blown diabetes. So it's very, very bad for us to have that level.
I think one of the things that many people don't realize is that once you go into that pre-diabetes range, even though it's pre-diabetes,
Yeah.
not as high as full-blown diabetes, but you've already doubled your risk of a heart attack.
Yes.
And so I think, a lot of people just don't realize that. They think, oh, it means I have a little bit of time to deal with this. Well, not necessarily, because
Mm,
you're already experiencing a lot of damage in your body. So I think it's important for people to understand that.
yeah.
But how difficult do you think it is to reverse these blood sugar conditions? And can you give us some ideas on practical ways we could start today?
Absolutely. Well, the good news is lifestyle and our eating is what got us into this metabolic unhealth and the situation that we're in, and lifestyle and eating can get us out. That is the really good news. And I cannot wait to share with you what I did to reverse my high blood sugar levels and what I help my
Tell us.
clients do. Yes, I can't
Tell us.
wait.
Tell us.
Well, but first, I want to quickly talk about one solution that is very
Okay.
common right now. They are GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and
Mhm.
Wegovy. And I just want to talk about really quickly what that is and the pros and cons of it. Um, for yeah, so what it is. So GLP-1 is something that it's a naturally occurring hormone in our body.
Mhm.
And it promotes satiety, so we feel fuller. It promotes our pancreas or it signals our pancreas to release insulin to lower blood sugar. It is a naturally occurring hormone. However, the GLP-1 drugs, they're a drug that mimics the hormone. And it's important that we know that because sometimes when we're on things like hormone replacement therapy and we're thinking about HRT being bioidentical, these are hormones that are already in our bodies, and we are adding, progesterone, estrogen,
Mhm.
testosterone, and it is a bioidentical, already occurring, hormone in our body. These GLP-1 drugs are different in that they are mimicking the hormone. So that's the first thing, because I've had a couple of clients be like, isn't this already, it's a little confusing because it's called GLP-1, which we do have, but it's not
Mhm.
that. It is a drug that mimics that. So these drugs promote satiety. They, make us have like they cause our digestion to take longer so we don't have to eat as often. When we do eat, manage it by, releasing insulin, lowering the blood sugar. They reduce the reward. So when we're eating this food, we don't really get the same reward as if we weren't on the drug, we'd be enjoying it more than if we are on the drug. So basically,
Interesting.
what I like to, how I like to explain these GLP-1 drugs is that they make us immune to our food supply, to our obscene food supply that is just all
Mm.
around us. Now, those are the pros, and that is a significant pro. But what I think before people decide to get on these drugs, I think it's important to think about the cons, not just the pros. It's important to think about both sides. So the cons are the expense. So with insurance, it can be up to 350, a month. So $350 a month if it's covered
Mhm.
by insurance. Without insurance, it can be up to $1,000 a month. So that's the first thing,
Wow.
just the expense. The second thing is the requirement to be on these drugs for life. So as of right now, there's no exit ramp for getting off these drugs. If you get off these drugs, you will inevitably go back to eating the way you were before and have weight regain. You have to be on the drug to continue seeing benefits of it. The third con, in my opinion, are the side effects, known and known. So we have the known side effects, but there's also the long-term unknown side effects. For example, muscle loss or bone density issues. When you're on a, a drug for decades, there are things that you don't know yet, side effects that you don't know. So
Right.
known and unknown side effects. And the fourth thing is just so far, the adherence rate for these drugs is really low. So 27% of people who started the drug 1 year later were taking it. So out of 100 people who started taking GLP-1, only 27% or only 27 of them are still taking it after a year. And this could
Hmm.
be for several factors. It could be because of expense, it could be because of just the maintenance of taking a drug. every day. It's hard, and it could be for the side effects. So when you think about an adherence that low to a drug that you're supposed to take for life, that's kind of concerning, right? So those are the pros and cons. Now, I want to talk really quickly about our standard American diet. Lucia, think about the side effects of our standard American diet. Everything we've been talking about so far are side effects of our diet. When we eat these highly processed food, they react like drugs in our system. So, what I want to share with your listeners is that it seems on the surface that we have a choice, that we have to choose between GLP-1 drugs for life, the expense, the known and unknown side effects, the maintenance, or enduring our standard American diet where we have all of this negative effects. But there is a third option. We don't have to choose left or right. We have a third option. And that option is what I want to empower your listeners. And I empower myself to know we can, by our eating and our lifestyle, we can become immune to our obscene food environment. And that is what I want to share with you today, how we can do that.
All righty, we have about 5 minutes in which to do that. So as we talk about that, can you give us some of those practical tips about how do we become immune to that? How
Yes.
do we really work with that? I wanted to also just mention one thing about the GLP-1, which is that because it, not only because it's artificial thing that they're putting into your body, right?
Yeah.
But also that in our body, our hormones have cycles, like they're higher at parts of the day than other parts of the day. When we do the pharmaceutical version of like Ozempic, we no longer have the cycling of the
Mhm.
hormones. It's just a level that's maintained. And so it really affects every system in our body in a way that we weren't designed to work with. And so I think people need to understand that because they think, oh, it's just think, and I don't have enough in my body. I'm going to take a little bit more of this. But it really is changing a lot of things about how our body functions, not just the decrease in appetite or those things.
Oh,
So yeah, so what are some things that we can do in a practical way?
yes. So the first thing is just the first lever is our food. So there is a book, Glucose Revolution. It's incredible. She talks about how we should not eat naked carbs. And when we add any kind of fiber to our food, it blunts the glucose spike, it delays the digestion, and it does increase our natural GLP-1. And so when we eat, with my clients, I have their meal plan and they eat vegetables with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it dramatically affects blood sugar. So that is the first thing, is just how we eat. Just like cutting out the processed food and adding in fiber and good fats and just eating whole real food that our body was designed to eat. And exercise. And you talk about exercise and movement a lot. I've heard you have your guests talk about it a lot. So I won't go too much into it, but exercise and not even overexerting yourself, but just moving your muscles will increase insulin sensitivity and help your body become more insulin sensitive. So that is a really, really big one. Fasting. Fasting is amazing. So when I realized that I had really high blood sugar, I did a 16/8 fast. So I would, fast for 16 hours, eat for 8 hours, be really careful about what I was eating, and that allows our body to have more time without insulin spiking and blood sugar spiking. It works beautifully on our blood sugar. Yeah, and then just for my clients, because my clients come to me and they have issues when they start eating, they don't stop. Like, because it really is an addiction where they need boundaries. And people say to me, we can stop drinking alcohol, but we can't stop eating food. So what do you do? And I provide my clients with a meal plan that allows them to create an abstinence around their food. So it is weighed and measured for the first 30 days. They have a certain amount and they're amazed at how much they actually get to eat, because sometimes we restrict our calories to try to lose weight. and we should be eating a lot of good, healthy food. So just our meals being weighed and measured for the first 30 days creates this peace
Mm.
around just peace and abstinence. Knowing that you're eating what you said you would eat just shuts down that noise. And then water. Water helps the kidneys flush, the blood sugar out, and it's so important. Sometimes we confuse hunger for thirst. We are dehydrated, you know? So yeah, those are some
I
ways,
love it.
some practical
Yeah,
ways.
those are some great tips. And those are things that we can do right away, don't cost anything. We can just start implementing those things and they will make a difference because they're some of the same things that I use with my clients and I see the difference that it makes. So I really appreciate that you are helping people to get this message and get the message out that there's hope, that yes, you can reverse these metabolic disorders, especially the metabolic syndrome and prediabetes, pretty much 100% reversible. And even a large percentage of type 2 diabetes is reversible through lifestyle approaches, these things that you've mentioned. So really, really appreciate you bringing those up. And I just want to make sure that people know that you also have a free gift for them. And the link to that is going to be right here wherever you're watching this video. It'll be on the same page. Probably in the description below the video, you'll find a link to Sarah's free gift, the Craving Crusher Tip. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Yes, I would love to. So I deal with clients who know that they need to not eat that thing and just have a hard time not eating that thing. And in my course, I just provide a lot of practical tips, a lot of exercises, a lot of ways to choose the right path, the right food. And this is just one that's really easy to exercise. It's an exercise that you can do that will just help you make the right choice in the moment. So
Mm.
I will give that to you as well as a 15-minute free consult call to just discuss my coaching. If we're the right fit, I would love to talk to you.
Awesome. I love that, Sarah. And so be sure and look in the description below this video to catch the free gift as well as her contact information. So there'll be all the information there about how to set up that free call with her and other resources that she provides. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, sharing hope and bringing your experience and your expertise to us, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Just remember, health is wealth, and it comes by choice, not by chance. Hope you have a great day.